Good morning, everybody. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville. You are on the Lifeboat. All right, people. So, first, huge shout out to Heather Joy for stepping up to the plate. Contrary to popular belief, I was not ill yesterday in any way, shape, or form. So, what happened yesterday is I actually met with a professional, which I admittedly have not done much of in my life, much less, in anything. I've always kind of been of the belief that I'm pretty damn smart and I could probably figure out things for myself. And truth be told, I'm not that smart, at least when it comes to certain things. So yesterday I met with someone. Oh man, hold on one second. Do I see Marjan von Bockel? I never say that right. You know who that is, people? I bet you don't. That is the first subscriber to this channel. Now, there were subscribers to Tommy Scoville that had no idea I was doing anything about sobriety. But that gentleman was the first person who knew that this channel was going to be about trying to help people get sober. I met him in a different comment section. Hey, I love you, man. I really do. And he's doing good. I met him in a comment section. He had left a comment about how he was just going through it. He was having a really bad time. And I left a comment below him. I said, you know what? I got a channel. I literally just put, officially like all together today. And it was a few days before I actually went live. And might have been a week right before we went live. But he was the first person to know that this is what I'm doing. And so I always love it when I see him pop in here. Okay, Heather Joy did a great job for me yesterday while I was meeting with a consultant who wanted to talk to me about taking the Lifeboat to the next level, which I think is important. Also, you'll get a kick out of this. There's all kinds of talk. People talk all the time about people selling out, right? I mean, I caught hell just for doing the membership thing. People jumped all over me for that, which... it's neither here nor there. It really isn't. But there's a lot of people who really seem to take umbrage with the concept of any kind of money being made in any way, even if you're just using it to further the cause of the Lifeboat. Sorry, I misplaced something. So I got an email yesterday, and I get these every day, right? And they're BS. Every one of them are BS. But it's an email that says, hey, we love your channel. We would really like to do some kind of a collaboration, and we'll pay you $5,000 up front. If that's not enough money, tell us what is. Blah blah blah. And I've never entertained any of these for a couple of reasons. Very often they're video games, and I don't know how that possibly jives with anything that we do, right? I mean, if that email came from a rehabilitation center. Right? That might, like a nationwide chain of rehabilitation centers. If that came from somebody that made Harvoni, the stuff that treats Hep C, something that like fell in line with what we do, I might be all over that. But they're always video games. If I came on here and said, I got three ways that I think you need to do A, B, and C if you really want to stay sober. And C is a brand new video game by a company called, I wouldn't even have respect for myself. So, yeah, that said, the consultant that we were working with yesterday, hey, Squirrel, the consultant that I was working with yesterday does that. Like, he goes out and finds, as part of the consulting job, he goes out and brokers some deals to try to find some sponsorship that is in line with what you do. And the reason I was willing to talk to this guy in the first place is when I got the email, I always fire back and say to them, what about what I do you really like? Because they always say, I really love what you do, and they don't know what you do. They buy you off a list. And they don't know whether you've done one video or 7 videos, but they buy you off of a list. So this guy fired back instantly. And not only did he talk about, the fact that we don't use a 12-step model, but we don't have a problem with people who do. Like, this cat watched the Lifeboat. He may have only seen 4 or 5 of them. I don't know. But he definitely took the time to watch some of them. And I thought that was pretty cool. He's also going to help us with some upgrades and equipment getting the absolute right stuff for a change, and setting up a proper in-studio kind of a situation so that the captain's cabin, whether it's here or at my next home, Squirrel, is actually something that that'll be optimum for filming, which I think is a really good idea. Okay, so that's that. And that's what I was doing yesterday. It's also Women's History Month, and I would like to hear more female voices on the Lifeboat. I really would. I get emails every single week from people who say, maybe you could talk to Lady Crispin and get her on, or maybe the two of you could do a show together because we really like the idea of hearing a woman on the Lifeboat. And I love that idea. Lady Crispin? No. It is never going to happen. She does not want to do that. When I brought it up, she just said, yeah, no chance. So Heather likes it. If you're a woman and you'd be interested in doing some stuff on the Lifeboat, reach out to me. Send me an email at sober@myyahoo.com, and we can talk about it, because I do want to represent as many voices as possible, and there are a huge percentage, not quite 50%. Of people who are addicted are women. It's a little less than that. So, but I absolutely love the idea. There you go, you crazy cat. I do like the idea of getting more voices in. Now, before we get rolling, and we're going to get rolling, there are some other changes that are going to be happening on the boat. And these are based on you guys, really, more than anything else. You remember when I said, let me know what you think about the political shows? Right? You want them gone? Then tell me you want them gone. I get that. But I don't read minds, and it's difficult sitting in this chair, because if I go and I do a rant on, the government not taking care of us and drugs, taking over the country, I'm going to get sometimes 750 views, right? So somebody's liking it, because those are the most viewed videos. However, I'm not going to bum out the whole crew if they don't like it. So the vast majority of people who responded, and not enough of you did, but the vast majority of people who, enough to call it a majority of people that responded to my question, all said the same thing. Do it at the same time. Like, have one day a week, or, 2 days a month, or whatever you decide. But let people know in advance, okay, this is going to be one of those shows where I talk about this, so that the people that don't like it don't have to be there. And the people that really do like it, who don't like other stuff I do. I hope that makes sense. There are some people that come over here to watch the Lifeboat when I'm ranting. They like the delivery, or they like the content, or they just agree with what we're talking about, or whatever, but we get a lot of them. So what we're going to be doing is, and I'm going to be announcing, when exactly it's going to be and how often it's going to be, because I'm going to be asking you people that as well. Fire off to me at sober@myyahoo.com and talk to me about, how often you want this or don't want this, right? And that will really help out. But it's going to be called The Politics of Drugs. That way there's nobody that can possibly think for a second that I'm going to be, talking about this or that, right? Left or right. I'm going to be talking about the politics of drugs. There's never going to be a political discussion about the Second Amendment. There's never going to be a political discussion about, pro-life, pro-choice. This is about drugs, and it's not going to be about anything else. Just politics as it affects those of us who have a drug problem, and the people who are still in that life. Okay, so that's that. And then there's going to be a couple of other shows that are going to be outside the realm of pure rehab talk. It's going to be more geared toward more entertainment. However, it will always be about drugs. For instance, if I did a show on that 3-letter agency in the U.S. that starts with a C and ends with an A, right? And how they have been intimately involved in the drug trade for the last 3 to 4 decades. Like that kind of a video, we will schedule those as well, so that once a month or whatever, we'll do the drug conspiracy kind of a things. Not going to do a lot of them, but a lot of people reach out and ask me, to research this or research that. And it's always right down that line of this borders on conspiracy type stuff. But if it's, I don't have a problem with conspiracy theories, especially since most of them seem to be coming true, right, or being proven out. But I don't want to do anything that isn't about drugs. I don't want the boat to ever lose its mission or what it is that we do. That's super, super important to me. Okay, good. Let's get rolling. So the thumbnail says, "This is it, crew," right? Probably a little clickbaity. I'm sure that the people that hate me might think he's not doing it anymore, right? Last video. But this is it. What we're going to talk about right here is the entire ball game. This is it. So here's how it goes. And you can tell me what you think. But the vast majority of people on the boat these days are sober, right? They may be 5 days sober, they might be 3 weeks sober, but we do a lot of shows that talk very specifically about hold on one second, people. Squirrel, this is not your day. Come on, lay down. You're screwing up the show, Squirrel. Tighten up your game. Tighten up your game. Here, you want that? There you go. Sorry, people. The vast majority of you are sober at some level, right? And we do a lot of our shows on how to get sober. So we're preaching to about 4%, 5% of the audience in every show. It's, hey, Diary of a Madman, 25 days. Well done. Well done. Lady Crispin, good to see you. I was just talking about you earlier. This cat is a menace. I'm literally about to throw her out of here. So, the question on the thumbnail, who are you and what do you want, is really the absolute focus. Eventually, when the chemicals are no longer a part of your life, and I mean in any way, they're not even a part of your life as in, I don't spend all day thinking about them. I've been sober long enough that, days go by that I don't think about my substance of choice anymore. It's just no longer a part of my life, right? And at that point, the most important parts of sobriety, not chemical-free stuff, not using stuff, but of sobriety, is to figure out those questions that people have been asking each other since the dawn of man, right? Who am I? Where did I come from? Where am I going? And what is this life all about? Right? For real. Most people ask those questions of themselves at some point as they start to get older, and it's something that doesn't happen a lot with drug addicts. Seriously, we tend to take all of the important topics in life and push them to the side because we are basically having to deal with a drug habit or a mad cat. And that takes up all of our time. One of the reasons that, in my humble opinion, one of the reasons that people don't have sobriety really catch and they don't manage to stay sober for really long periods of time is because that becomes the ultimate focus of the life, right? And as we've talked about so many times before, if you're concentrating on, man, I don't want to get high again, I don't want to get high again, I don't want to get high again, and I don't want to get high again, man, I don't want to use, you're just putting out high again, use, high again. If you're sitting and concentrating on, who am I? The dope's out of my life. I have to decide at this point who I am and what I'm going to do. Who am I? And what do I want? What do I want out of life? How am I going to be known? Is there a mission or a goal in my life? These are the kinds of questions that if you begin to answer these, that's such a menace. If you start answering these questions, you're going to be concentrating on the bigger things in life. And very often when we do that, we start to get to the root problem of why we were getting high in the first place. I'm going to get 3 or 4 emails today from people who say, man, I just got high because I enjoyed getting high. I used to say the exact same thing. In fact, I was vicious about it. I used to say it in group therapy. Like I was just one of those people that disrupted any group I went to, right? I like to talk. And I would get in there and say, look, man, you're not going to talk me into my parents screwed up when I was a kid. I was not molested. I wasn't beat. I wasn't anything. I got high because I enjoyed getting high. And then it got out of control. And The person said to me, if that's the case, once it gets out of control and you sort of back off of it, more often than not, those individuals, like the one you're describing, will quit. They won't come back. It will scare the hell out of them. They'll realize that they really have the potential to become a drug addict overnight. And for that reason, they will not play those games. And that's not us. That's certainly not me. And I was sober for a long time before I started to hit on why exactly I was getting high. And honestly, I had no clue. But when you start getting into the questions of who am I and what do I want, that's when these things start jumping out. And, there's a person on the boat that I've been working with for a really long time who rang me out of the blue the other day and said, man, I just figured out why I've been getting high all my life. And it was the same experience for him that it was for me. Like, I didn't enjoy this, right? This process of figuring out this is why I'm getting high. It was a terrible thing for me. It required me to look at some things from my past that I really did not like. And it also was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. There was a fundamental shift in everything about my life. There is, this is something that just changed every single part of everything, including rehabilitation. Because now all of a sudden, I was concentrating on some things that I didn't even realize were issues. I started to work through some stuff because I'm telling you, like even when I quit, I had been addicted to heroin for 30 years. But I didn't quit because I thought my life had become unmanageable. I know that sounds stupid, but I was in federal prison. Obviously, my life had become unmanageable, but that's not why I quit. There were so many other reasons that I had listed. Like, I can't do this because of my kid, or I can't do this because I'm literally wearing out my body. My body's shot. You know what I mean? Like, I was walking around with a cane, and I just looked like I was, about 105 years old. It was one of those situations, honestly, where every time somebody heard my age, they'd be like, "You're 46? Damn, dude!" Those are city miles, huh? Weren't driving around on the highway much in your life, were you? It really was, there was so many epiphanies that took place once I started to get a handle on the fact that this is really where it's at. This is the reason that I did all of the things that I did, because it's a difficult process to wrap your head around. And it's one of those uncomfortable things that there are people who remain sober through the white knuckle system, and for the rest of their life, that all they do is cope with not getting high. You're not going to answer questions like, who am I and what do I want, if the only question that you can cope with is, am I going to use today? And you're not going to get to the things in life. Spirituality is huge, but like I've said to so many people in the past, God is really important. But if you wanted to sit down and have a conversation with me about religion while I was putting needles in my arm, I don't think you were going to have much luck. When you got a $600 a day habit, the only thing in your life is a $600 a day habit. There's nothing else. There isn't room for anything else. These things take up every single waking hour that you are alive. You're either doing drugs, thinking about drugs, trying to buy drugs, waiting in a parking lot for drugs, but it is... She knocked herself down that time. But it is one of those situations that once that part of this process is in the rearview mirror, then this is it. This is where you start to really get to the nuts and bolts stuff. And if you're listening to me right now and going, man, there is no reason that I get high. There's nothing deep underlying. I'm telling you, on a stack of Bibles, I could swear to you that I believed the exact same thing. And through a process of journaling and through a process of a couple of assignment is such a terrible word. A couple of things that are recommended by so many different psychologists and psychiatrists across the world that helps you look at who you are. And if you're willing to take the time to actually take a look at who you are, certain things start jumping off the page. And you start to realize that, good Lord, I definitely remember doing this, this, and this in my childhood. And I remember what it felt like, because we come to believe that if we're getting high because of something that happened to us earlier in life, it has to be the most traumatic thing in the world, right? It has to be epic. I mean, if it drove me, it only had to make you uncomfortable in your own skin. That's all it had to do. It had to make you uncomfortable in your own skin. And if it was good at that, and you found a substance that took that away, welcome to drug addiction. That's it. And I think that people make, they try to make something so much bigger than that. But really what it comes down to is, John Doe says, I can't begin to talk about my trauma. I don't know that you have to talk about it. I have never had a conversation with anybody on this planet to tell them, including Q. I've never told anybody the reason that when I figured out my reason, it was the most personal thing in the world to me. I have absolutely no desire whatsoever to discuss that with anybody. Storytime with Uncle Bill says, I spent 5 years in federal prison for weed, passed the 500-hour RDAP program and the 40-hour drug program too. I also earned 80 other certificates. Wow. Helped a lot when I was 21. I left at 28. Yeah, I did RDAP. And the 40-hour one that they force every single person to do, I think I've done that one 3 times. Yeah. So, but you know what? You used it, right? You looked at federal prison as an opportunity to better yourself. Some people do that. It's not the vast majority. Having been in there, you realize that most of the people just walk the yard, or they sit around and argue about what's going to be put on the television set, right? These are the things that keep federal prison going, or the politics, which is just a really cool term for where everybody's a racist, right? That's they like to call it politics, maybe because it sounds nicer or more educated, but it's just the most ignorant crap you've ever seen in your life. But yeah, it doesn't have to be something that you stand up in front of a group of people and say, I'm here to talk about my trauma. Now, if that trauma is, destroying you, if you realize that it's really, really working you over, you may want to start to do some exercises that may work up to talking to somebody about it. And I realize that right now, that sounds like the most unpleasant thing in the world, but something really, really unusual happens when you shine a light on any of these things that we've kept in the dark as long as we have. There is instantly, a form of relief that it changes people's lives. And now you're saying, well, then why didn't you talk to people about what your problem was? I'll be honest. I was, that the epiphany of what it was that, why I was using. It hit me about 4.5 years or something into my sobriety. It was not something that happened overnight. I think if I was sitting in front of Q when it happened, I probably would have told him. But it's not huge. It's nothing life-shattering. It's just exactly what caused me to feel uncomfortable in my own skin. That's when I was in my formative age. This is what made me uncomfortable all the time. And it was all the time. And, the first time I smoked weed, that went away. And it wasn't perfect. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, a lot of people say things very similar to this. I was a drug addict, and weed helped, but it wasn't what I was looking for. And I tried every drug with that mindset. As crazy as it is. And I don't mean consciously, but unconsciously, as I look back on it now, every single drug I did, I sort of evaluated, right? The first time I did blow, I was like, for about 15 minutes, I thought this stuff was perfect, and unfortunately, you do a line of cocaine and you're a new man. The trouble is that new man wants to do a line of cocaine, and that process just starts. And, it gets again to where the only thing that you do is cocaine. And, but when the opiates thing, I mean, when I did opiates for the first time, and I don't mean took them for pain. I mean, the first time where I was really, really hurting and I had taken exactly what they told me to take. Colburn Spencer, good to see you, brother. Glad that you're here. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, I had a bad ski injury, and I was supposed to take 1 to 3 pills, right? 3 times a day. So I took the 3. And the pain was still there. And I was like, what? This didn't do squat. So I ate 8 more. I remember like it was yesterday. And the drug went in and did exactly what it was supposed to. It got rid of all the pain. But there was extra in there. And what was coursing through my body now that every receptor had the crap slapped out of it, right? And I was not feeling pain of any kind. It started to work on spiritual pain, emotional pain, right? The stuff that makes you uncomfortable in your own skin. And I instantly knew. I mean, I remember, yeah. And then when I went from there to using the street version of that, right? Horse. The very first time that I did it with a needle, and the guy that I was with, it was a older gentleman. They called Ice, but he sort of helped me with the process. And I mean, I did it myself, but he was there, and I said, "Man, I want to feel like this for the rest of my life." And he just said, "Oh, He's like, "Man, don't say that." And I said, "No, I really do." And you know what? I almost did. There was a really good chance that I could have ridden that all the way to the beach and destroyed every single aspect of me and everybody I cared about in the process. Dragged down so many people. This is another realization, much like there was something I was trying to deal with. There was a reason I was uncomfortable in my own skin. That epiphany was life-changing. Really was. It was life-changing. But it was just one of many. You know, once you start looking into yourself, that process of self-discovery, I hate to say it, but for me, that process of self-discovery is sobriety. For real. And I'm still doing it. I'm still doing it every day. Every day I realize one more thing in my life that I'm absolutely horrendous at. And I'm now starting to apply all of the principles that got me sober to every problem that I have. The beautiful thing about getting sober is you absolutely can apply anything. It doesn't matter what you're trying to fight. The same principle can be applied to any of that. Love to hear real talk and positive. Had a great time again. Have to run. Hope everybody has a good day. Being sober is way more fun than being hated, especially by yourself. Love yourself today. Do it. Man, Uncle Bill, that's one of the great comments. Seriously, a long time. That is one of the great comments. And M. Hunt says, I'm appallingly flawed. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, of the 26 people who are currently here, I could probably say that about just about every one of them. For real. This is my theory, and it's a theory. It's completely a theory. Everybody on the planet is horrendously flawed. For real. All of us fall short of what we had for an ambition, of what we wanted to be and how we wanted to be and who we wanted to be. We missed the mark by half a mile. And I'm talking about every single person walking this planet. But those people come in a couple of different varieties. And one of those varieties is the fact that we feel horrendously uncomfortable in our own skin because we are well aware of the fact that we are appallingly flawed. I think that many of the people who just normally go through life, I think that they lack self-awareness for free. I mean, for real. If you ever had a conversation with somebody that has never had a drug problem and you unload some of who you are, right? They say, "Yeah, well, we're going out to a bar. We're all going to go out and, do some shots or whatever." And that's usually around the time I say, "Oh, yeah, I don't do that." "Oh, you don't drink?" "I don't do anything anymore, man. I had a really bad drug problem." And sometimes I'll let it go at that. But if the person says, "What's the drug?" then they're in for it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm really going to let it flow. And, normally you get the, "Man, didn't you realize that H was going to get you addicted?" I don't know, man. It made me feel normal. It made me feel like I was not hideously flawed. It made me feel like maybe with the help of this substance, I could actually get through this life. That's what addiction was to me. I think that a lot of people in the air quotes normal world may not feel like that. They may not feel that they're hideously flawed. Maybe they think they got it all together. And this is a theory, as I said, because I'm not that person. I have no idea how normal people, air quotes, normal people get through. Alcohol was the only thing that ever made me feel whole and complete. It filled a void that had existed since I could process external stimuli as an infant. You know what, M. Hunt? Interesting choice of words, because I could open up my journal like way back in the beginning, and I wrote about that constantly. That inside was a void, and I think at one point I said that there was an opiate-shaped void. There's a I'm trying to remember who it was. This is my brain. It really is. I used to remember all these things. There was a famous philosopher that said, every man is born with a God-shaped void inside. And they fill that with, religion or any number of things, but to cover that. I absolutely feel I was born with an opiate-shaped void, because when the first time it went in there, it was like a puzzle piece. It dropped into place, and just like Emma Hunt said, all of a sudden this feeling that I had had for such a long time that I wasn't right, I wasn't good enough, and that I was just so different than everybody else. That went away instantly. It really did. One of the other reasons that self-exploration is important, and this is going to sound really odd, but it's the truth, exactly like a key in a lock. I've said that. I've written that down 100 times. It's exactly like a key in a lock. One of the ailments that every single person who gets sober goes through, especially if they're honest, what you really end up with is that feeling that I am completely different than every other person who ever got addicted to drugs, ever, anywhere, right? Those people are different, man. If you start believing for a hot second that you're different than everybody else, you're going to use. I promise you. You're not, the realization that we're all in the same boat. And if you've never heard that, that's why this thing is called the Lifeboat, right? That's what started that whole conversation. I don't care what you're addicted to. I don't care what got you there. That's your personal business. I think you ought to care, because it will make life a whole lot better when you figure that out. But the truth is that the void, right, that every one of us has, regardless of what the drug is, or if it's not a drug, if it's a habit that you're addicted to, a behavior that you're addicted to, it still puts all of us in the same boat. But when you start believing that, I'm not like all of those other people. I really am not quite like those other people, right? I'm different. Well then, all of those rules that apply to those other people, right? There's no way you're ever going to control your drug of choice ever again. There's no control. You can't do it. There's no way to just, I'm just going to do smack on Christmas Eve. I just like to smoke a little heroin just on Christmas Eve. I'm never going to do it again. Just that one day. You start believing you're special. You start believing you're different. That all of the rules that apply to every other addict in the world don't apply to you. You're in deep crap. And it might take a week. It might take a year. It might take 4 or 5. But trust and believe you're going to relapse. That's going to be the driving factor. And I've told the story before, but the first time I went to an NA meeting, I walked in the door and I was court ordered to go to the first NA meeting I ever went to. And it was because I got caught with some drugs in my car. I was on my way to my office, and amazingly, they found weed, which was not mine, I assure you. At that point in my life, I was not having anything to do with that. I was only doing tar at that point in my life. But a cop found this in my automobile, and I was ordered to go to NA. And I had to get a paper signed and all of that. So I would stop on the way to my office, which meant that very often I was wearing a jacket and tie and a cashmere overcoat if it was the winter, a dark blue cashmere overcoat. And I would walk in and look around at the people in the room and be like, I have nothing like any of these people. These people are losers. I'm making this much money a month. I'm driving this car. Look at the clothes I have on. Like every stupid way that you could try to judge yourself, I was doing. Every dumb way, right? Down to jewelry or anything else, man. I was superior because of things. Pretty friggin' stupid, isn't it? But what really made me realize just how much better I was than all of those other people was how much shopping I had done. And through that whole self-exploration thing and trying to figure out who am I and what do I want, I came to realize that those things were just another attempt to make myself feel comfortable in my own skin. If maybe I bought this, or if maybe I shopped at this store, or if maybe this is what I was wearing, man, I would just be content. If I just had that, and then you get that. And if the thing is just really awesome and it's something that you really focused on for a long time in your life, it might bring you peace for about an hour and a half, right? Maybe in a day or two. You're fascinated with your new purchase or whatever, but that's going to crash. But I remember like it was yesterday, standing in that NA meeting and judging every single person in that room one at a time. I had to be in there for an hour, and I looked at every one of them, tried to see if I could figure out the story in my head. And the only thing I knew for sure was every one of them was a loser except me. And I remember doing the same thing in a drug meeting in federal prison and realizing that I was no different than any other person in that room. It didn't matter what their crime was. It didn't matter how they got there. Man, I was that person. This is me, right? And that was the beginning of a lot. It really was. It was the beginning of an awful lot. I don't shop the way that I used to. Checking out their watches too, no doubt. Yeah, I probably was looking at their watches. You know what? And there was that shifted. That entire love of watches. I really have become somebody that loves the inside of the watch more than the outside of the watch. I really don't care what they're made of. There was a time in my life where I promise you that the only thing it was about was so that I could show people what I had on. And now I've got a collection of some really viciously nice timepieces that are made of precious metal and have diamonds on them and this and that. Hardly ever put them on. Now that they're here. Now that I don't give a crap about the external. And now that I'm far more concerned with the internal, I really try not to judge myself or find happiness in things. And, I've been asked more in the last couple of weeks if I'm addicted to this than I had been in the last year and a half. So maybe I look like a YouTube junkie because I'm getting those emails constantly. And yeah, I think I probably am. And I don't mean the sitting in front of the camera part, but this mission, this who am I and what do I want? It comes down to this in a very big way. It really does. And there are people who will say that's unhealthy. I guarantee you they will. And there are people that will tell you that this is going to end up making me miserable at some point in my life. I don't buy it. I really don't. When I figured out who I was and I figured out what I wanted and I started to go down this road, it started in federal prison. The first incarnation of me talking to people about drugs was inmates. And the first one that came up to me and said, you know what? The last 7 days are the only 7 days of my sentence that I was not high. And my brain went and threw a switch. and dopamine, and oxytocin, and I don't know what else, but a bunch of, a bunch of that feel-good chemical just started running into my body. And I was addicted that moment. But I'm a whole lot happier being addicted to this than anything else I've ever done. The idea of trying to help individuals as opposed to trying to hurt them. The idea of having a mission in my life that went beyond, boy, I really don't want to be sick today. As jacked up as it is, that was my mission for 30 years. How quickly can I make the sick go away? It's funny when people talk about, I've been getting high for 30 years or whatever. And, what's your drug of choice? Heroin. Man, you ain't been getting high for 30 years. There's no way. You probably got high for about 6 months. And then after that, the only thing that you were doing was trying to make the sick go away. You were chasing the feeling of well-being. Sad but true. So the question that I will put out to everybody here is, who are you? What do you want? And if you're willing to take like a pretty serious journey, then there are going to be some things that we talk about coming up. And they are absolutely going to take you on a journey of self-discovery and of exploration. And truth be told, some of you are going to disappear because, I'm not going to be putting anybody on a couch and saying, okay, Miss V, jump up. I want you to come on here live and let's talk about all of the things in your life that make you uncomfortable. It's never going to be anything like that. This is a journey of self-exploration. However, many people get really, really uncomfortable with that. Right? They get really uncomfortable with that. They have come to just hate it. So, we might lose a few, but we've plateaued in terms of the core group of people here who I love. We've plateaued. I am very confident that the vast majority of you don't need to hear any more about the initial quit. From time to time, we'll touch base about the initial quit for other people who just find it. But you know what? There's 700 videos out there, right? 700 and change. They ought to be able to come across that and find it. Last night, the Lifeboat hit 200,000, and my brother is sort of philosophical about this because I think Johnny is at 25 million views or something outlandish. But these aren't views. They're not. They're people who attended group therapy. That's what it is. It's 200,000 times. 200,000 times that people came to group therapy in hopes of not getting high anymore. That makes the hair that is not on the back of my neck stick straight up. True story. And I don't know what else happened. I don't know if it's odd that these things lined up. But also last night, we tripped 3 years. 3 years of watch time. So you take all of the time that people have watched the Lifeboat, and if you were to turn on the channel and let it run 24 hours a day around the clock, it would take 3 years to go through all of the watch time that has taken place on the Lifeboat. And once again, that just blows my mind. It really does. Especially since, Brandon Taylor, it's been good to see you, bud. Take care of yourself at work. Much love. It's one of those, all of these things blow my mind because I absolutely am telling you the God's honest truth when I say this. But I really thought that 1,000 was going to be a stretch. I thought that 1,000 people that were going to come here and listen to a bank robber talk about drugs and to try to help people get sober. I just did not see this growing to the size that it has. And the truth of it is, it's starting to take on, it's starting to display certain characteristics that very often are noticeable before a channel kind of gets a lot bigger a lot quicker, right? And there's a couple of things. I say I am not sick anymore. I don't feel sick. M. Hunt, that absolutely makes my day. It really does. Absolutely makes my day. But the reason I was talking to a consultant last night is what we do as a channel in the next year or so is going to determine just how well this goes and just how big it gets. The beautiful thing is that the group of people that has just been here day after day after day. If you ever been over to Marf, you go over and watch Marfugal. There's a bunch of people leaving comments. I mean, a bunch. Hell, there's thousands of people in the live chat. But you can pick out the 30 names of people that have been there since the beginning and know everybody. And it really is a cool thing. And new people join that group, it gets bigger. But you would think it was going to get lost in the translation and there would be absolutely no way to keep up with the people that you really care about. And that terrified me. Really did. Had a lot to do with why I wanted to talk to a consultant. I just did not want... what makes this place special needs to not change. And, that was one of those things that, it almost makes you want to jerk the e-brake and say, you know what, 4,000 is a good number if we don't go any bigger than that. We're reaching a lot of people and, and we can really get to know one another and all of that. The trouble is, all of the people that we're not reaching these days are dying really quickly. And a lot of those people, there but for the grace of God, right? It could be me, it could be anybody else. Could be anybody else. So we need to go after as many people as we possibly can. We really do. If you look at what's going on in this world currently, right now, the number of people that are dying from these substances and how it's going down. We talk all the time about how you don't want to kill your clients. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? You know what else doesn't make a whole lot of sense? Why would you smuggle the stuff across the border already in pill form? Does that make any sense to you? Right? You can buy a pill press on Amazon and have it at your house within 6 days in the US. So why would you take the time to press them into pills on the south side of the border? If you think about it logically, fent can be put in liquid form, right? Very easy to smuggle anything in liquid form. Super, super easy. And then you reconstitute it when you get to this side of the border and you press it into pills. You can get a lot more over in a very small, you get a bottle this big and it's going to turn into, untold kilos. The reason that stuff's coming across the border in pills is because they don't want the dealers who buy this stuff and then sell it to their clients making it any safer. Think about it. If it came across in powder, they would test it and they would go, oh man, look at him. He looks like he's going to die. We got to cut this down, cut this down, cut this down. Try it again. No, it's way too hard. Cut this down, cut this down, cut this down. For real. When I was doing this stuff, not fent, but when I was in the life, there was a guy in town who was a big dope dealer. And he used to call me and say, I want you to meet me at the Grand Sierra, or I want you to meet me at the Hilton or whatever. And I'd meet him at the casino and I would go upstairs and there would be, 5 or 6 guys from south of the border in there and they would have a ton of different dope. And he would say, I just want you to try this stuff and tell me what you think the best is because I'm getting ready to buy a bunch of it. And, sort of like a guinea pig kind of a thing. And they would, pay me a bunch of dope and some cash before I left. But I remember, saying to him, this batch is going to kill so many people in this town. Like my knees buckled, and that doesn't happen to me. Like, this is going to kill people. And he bought it. And I said to him, dude, I'm telling you. He's like, oh, I'm going to cut the hell out of this. I'm just going to cut the hell out of this. Let's make the first virtual band about sobriety. The Lifeboat is the name. There you go. Got a lot of people in the virtual band. A lot of people in that virtual band. But yeah, we can't restrict the message of what we're doing. And the more research that, I was absolutely smack Q&A. It really was. The more that you start to research this, and the more you start to look at trends, right? Because nothing new happens under the sun. So I've been spending a really decent amount of time studying the crack wars, right, that we've lived through already, and exactly what happened, right? All of this. Schrodinger's squirrel, you nailed it. You really did. You nailed it. This is the fifth tier, the fifth incarnation of weaponry on this planet. And they don't need to go boom anymore. Now they can just destroy an entire country by putting this stuff on the streets, and and they just continue to up it. Imagine knowing that the product that you had was killing a huge percentage of the people that were doing it. I got a good idea. Let's add xylazine. Makes a hell of a lot of sense, doesn't it? Let's add a horse tranquilizer to it. One that eats skin. That way, even if the person does get clean down the road, they'll be hideously scarred or perhaps missing a limb. Makes it hard to fight. Anyway, I start studying the crack wars, and you literally can read year by year what happened. And you can do the same thing with the first leg of the opioid epidemic, brought to you by the Sacklers, right? Literally, we've talked about this. I did a video about this. But what we're seeing right now, in about 2 years, the number of people who are going to be trying to get off of this crap is going to be terrifying. When the, silent weapons for quiet wars. That's a great comment, because it's the absolute truth. And why would our military be funding a way to find a V for that? And that V is not for Miss V. Kensington residents have a name for the smell on the street. Decomp fragrance. Wow. Wow. It's crazy. People, if you've never watched any of the videos of Kensington, go catch 30 seconds of it. You don't have to spend a whole lot of time there. You don't. It's disturbing as hell, and you're not going to like it. But look at it and realize that this is happening in America. It's happening here. So with that in mind, in about 2 years, the number of channels on the big red button that are doing what we do right now is going to be astronomical. I promise you. Because there's not going to be enough rehabilitation possibilities in this country for the number of people who are going to need it. True story. It is going to be absolutely terrifying. Family landscape. I was absolutely shocked too. It's so disturbing. It really is. It's so disturbing. And, they're banging dope, right? Literally walking down the street with a needle in their arm. And you watch cop cars drive by, right? There's a cop driving down the street. Well, from his vantage point, he can see 7 syringes out in the open air of people banging dope. And they're not even going to harass them. And, I saw a cop interviewed. And his response was, what are we going to do? Arrest the entire city? Even if we arrested that person, what are we going to do? Arrest everybody? No, I got a better idea. Just give up. Give up. Let them do whatever the hell they want. How's that working out? Because that's what they're doing. So it's going to be one of those things, people, that as amazing as it sounds, and as crazy as it might sound, all of us, every single one of us that are here, coming here day after day, right, showing up day after day and really making a family out of this and really becoming close to one another, we are going to be so unbelievably needed in the next couple of years. Because just like crack, all of those people got hooked. And then every rehab center in the U.S. got flooded with people who are trying to get clean off of crack. And this is going to be so much uglier. This is going to be so much uglier. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And the politics of war. I mean, the politics of drugs. I'm going to announce that way before it happens. And if you're someone that doesn't want to deal with any of that, you don't have to show up, right? But it's something that needs to be said. There's things that need to be talked about because, there are people that don't watch the news. There really are. There's a ton of them because the news is so damn depressing. And if you don't ever watch the news, you might have missed our president talking about a woman who lost 2 children to overdoses of fentanyl and saying, that wasn't on my administration. That's one of the most disturbing clips of film I have ever seen. It really is. But it sums up exactly the attitude of what our government thinks of us. Us. Right? Drug addicts. Junkies, drunks, winos, tweakers, coke fiends, crackheads. Yeah. Miss V says, I believe this is why we found the Lifeboat, to help be soldiers against drugs and alcohol. Boy, oh boy, do I believe that. Boy, do I believe that. I live on the foothills of Tennessee mountain range. I think I knew that. I'm sorry. That's the state of human society. Yeah, you know what, people? But M. Hunts has agreed, Miss V. I'll tell you something right now, people. We're in it. We're in it right now. We really are. And the rate of growth right now is awesome. It really is. We're growing at a very controlled and predictable rate. And that's great. But it isn't going to last. I promise you it's not. As people really start getting the handle, you can do dope, especially cheap dope. And they're making this really cheap, right? At Kensington, it's $2 a bag. $2 a bag. It's like $15 a gram, right? And if they're giving you a break on it, you're probably going to be paying less than that. You might be getting 10 if you get a couple of G's. It's just terrifying. But because of how cheap this substance is, and because of how prevalent, the fact that it's everywhere, then boom, eventually the people are going to hit rock bottom. And, crack was the same thing. When crack came out, blow was $100 a gram. But for $5, you could buy a crack rock. And it opened up a whole new market, right? And because of how inexpensive it was, it took a period of time for those people to realize that, forget the money part of this. This is absolutely destroying me, right? Well, we are going to see in the next 2 years hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions and millions of people, who are going to be needing help off of this crap. And with the amount of time that everyone has spent here and together, we really are going to be on the front line of this. Like it or not, we really are. So I've been, now we're talking to some professionals so that we sort of get this figured out, Southern Grace 8 says, Captain Tommy, we are wanting to schedule a sober retreat up in the Northeast Alabama. Will you lead it for us if I set it up? If there is a sober retreat somewhere, I absolutely will show up there. Okay? Absolutely. And the day is coming where I'm going to be able to sort of go around the country and meet people and do things like that in different places. You all may as well be the first to know because literally nobody knows. And since Lady Fiona is here, and I won't be telling you before her because that's bad form, I am filing right now, literally. The paperwork is being put together right now for my motion to terminate my supervised release. I have done everything right. I have done it according to their rules. I've done it long enough, and I have had no negative interaction. I've not been written up for anything. So, yeah, I know you're still here. I said, since Lady Fiona is still here, I can say this now. Pay attention, Philly. Tommy, if you make it out to Alabama, stop here in Georgia for a spell. People, I kid you not. Like, once the paper is, once they pull me off paper, I'm gonna have the opportunity to put together some stuff, and if we hit, 5 or 6 places in the U.S., so that some of you may have to travel an hour, to come and meet everybody. But I'll have to travel 1,000, right? And I'll make that if you guys can make the 100, and we'll get, some. I'll be back speaking in hotels. It'll be a real trip, but to do that sober, it'll be really crazy because I've never done that sober. But yeah, there's a lot on the horizon, people. You know what else is on the horizon, people? A basket with a cat in it. Sorry, I'm half asleep. It's 1 a.m. there. Yeah, I know. Usually I have on a watch that actually keeps time in both time zones, so I know what time it is where Fee is. Southern Grace, I have traveled through Tennessee, and it's some of the most gorgeous scenery I've experienced. I absolutely will back that up. I spoke in Tennessee, and I had a visual image of what I thought Tennessee was going to be, and it just was nothing like I thought it was going to be. But boy, it is beautiful. The gym and shower are on my horizon. M. Hunt, you sound downright normal. Huh? We'll go do a little working out? God bless you. Alrighty, people. Little River Canyon area. Okay. Big fan of the Little River Band. You guys remember that band? Friday night, it was late. I was walking home, got down to the gate, and I was dreaming of the night. No? You're all too young? Would it turn out right? That's a cat in the basket. See you guys at 5 o'clock tonight. God bless. Between now and then, reach out and try to save somebody, eh?